The tax preparation industry was a $13.8 billion market in 2023, and it's growing steadily as the tax code gets more complicated. There are some politicians who push for a simpler tax system, but lobbying groups, especially tax preparation companies, fight against this because why let people file for free when they can be forced to pay for TurboTax instead? So, on average, each American household spends $200 every year on private tax services just to get their refunds. But that's not even the worst of it. At the time we're recording this video, the second Trump administration is making massive cuts to the IRS, right as people are filing their taxes. Things like this mean your refund might take longer to get to you. Your tax refund doesn't just magically appear. It has to be processed by the IRS, an agency that the government loves to underfund, while also demanding that it process millions of refunds quickly and perfectly. But politicians get away with it because the IRS is an easy punching bag. People don't really love the tax man. But the IRS itself, despite all its challenges, is one of the most cost-effective government agencies ever. For every dollar the IRS spends on auditing the richest 10% of Americans, it brings in $12 of revenue. That should be heralded as a success, but some very influential rich people don't like it at all, and that has had an effect on the politics of funding the IRS. For years, the IRS has been starved of resources due to fights over government spending. Politicians love to complain about government inefficiency, then turn around and slash the IRS budget, ensuring that inefficiency is inevitable. In the very recent past, average wait times for customer service phone calls to the IRS reached a peak of almost half an hour. And it's probably no coincidence that at the same time, the richest Americans became drastically less likely to get audited. For households with incomes at $10 million or more, their IRS audit rate in 2011 was 30%. By 2020, that number had fallen to a measly 2.4%. The rich are getting what they pay for, all right, but it's the political donations that are paying off for them in the form of keeping the IRS too busy to make sure the rich are paying what they owe. That started to change in 2022 when the Biden administration approved increased IRS funding, including $80 billion in the Inflation Reduction Act, to help modernize the IRS customer service systems and go back to auditing the rich. But opponents of the plan immediately complained that it was the start of some dystopian tax police state, because clearly an agency struggling to answer phone calls was just one step away from stormtroopers kicking down your door over a missing W-2 form. The truth is that the additional money helped the IRS fix many of the service problems it had for years. In the past, phone lines were overwhelmed by customer service calls every tax season, and many returns were delayed. But the IRS hired more customer support representatives and reduced the average wait times on phone calls from 28 minutes to just 3 minutes. This is exactly how the government should work. People complained about not being able to get help on the phone and poor digital tax information services. The government put more money into the problem, and lo and behold, things got better. Rich people were getting away with not paying, but with more funding in 2024, the IRS collected more than $1 billion from wealthy Americans with unpaid tax debts. That's up from just $38 million a year earlier. Now, the Trump administration is trying to take back all that progress by shredding the IRS again. And stripping the IRS down to its bare bones could lead to higher audit rates for poor people. The IRS would likely have to spend less of its limited resources examining the taxes of wealthy households and businesses, since the rich have all sorts of tricks at their disposal, and finding where they hide the money takes significant forensic accounting and manpower. It's easier to spend more time auditing regular 9-to-5 folks because their employers report most of their income on W-2s, and it's easy to find discrepancies. To put it plainly, the politics of rich people who make money off of you keep you from having a simple way to manage your taxes and get your money back. But even when you're getting a refund, politics can still make it a headache to actually get your money. Nearly 2 out of 3 taxpayers got a federal tax refund for 2023, averaging about $3,100. But most people aren't saving that money for a rainy day. They're using it to pay rent, buy groceries, or finally pay off all the Christmas gifts they put on their credit cards. For a lot of people, their tax refund is a fundamental part of how they make ends meet. This is especially true for American millennials, with nearly half of them saying their tax refund is very important for their household budgeting. So, what's an ordinary citizen supposed to do in this complicated tax war zone? Well, there are a few places where you can start. Firstly, if you're getting a refund, that means you overpaid the government. Revisit your tax withholding forms at your employer and adjust so you're getting more of your money in every paycheck, not way later in the form of a refund. The IRS has a great little online tool to help you do that. Use it before Elon deletes it. Next, file your taxes early, as soon as you have all the forms you need, so that if you do have a refund coming, you get it early as possible, and you can avoid any possible delays. Plus, the earlier you get your money, the quicker you can put it to work for you. And finally, vote. Vote for politicians who are going to make your tax life easier. That doesn't necessarily mean go for whoever promises the biggest tax cut, because most of the time, that's a lie.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
Instead, do a couple of other things. First, find politicians who are going to close the loopholes that the rich use, so they're actually paying their fair share. And second, support making the tax code simpler, so it's much easier to figure out what you need to do and keep your money in your pocket. At the end of the day, your tax refund isn't just some neutral financial transaction. It's a reflection of political decisions, budget fights, and the bizarre, often hypocritical, priorities of lawmakers. So, next time you look at your refund and wonder why it's smaller than last year, or why you're waiting forever to get it, just remember it's not just about taxes. It's about politics, bureaucracy, and the eternal struggle between the rich and everyone else.